This journey is no ordinary tale. The stories ahead are brutal, haunting, and drawn from the darkest corners of human cruelty. A shadow moved through Sacramento's quiet suburbs, his footsteps silent, his intent a blade cutting through the night. Joseph James DeDangelo, a Navy veteran and former cop, was a ghost in plain sight. By day, a mechanic in Auburn, California, fixing engines and coaching Little League, his smile disarming, his life unremarkable. But when darkness fell, he became the Golden State Killer, a predator whose hunger for control consumed him. In 1974, his world began to crack. His engagement to Bonnie Caldwell collapsed. His policing career in Exeter and Auburn unraveled after he was fired for shoplifting. Rage festered, twisting into an obsession to dominate, to terrorize. He started small, prowling Visalia as the Visalia ransacker, stealing coins and jewelry, but soon his urges demanded more. By 1976, he was slipping into homes across Sacramento, targeting women alone or couples asleep. His flashlight's beam, a harbinger of horror. His need to violate, to break, drove him to commit at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and over 120 burglaries, each act a step deeper into a void where humanity dissolved. His crimes bore a signature so vile it sears into memory like blood on white sheets. DeAngelo didn't just kill. He orchestrated nightmares. He'd stalk his targets for weeks, memorizing their routines, slipping into their homes to unsettle them, unloading guns, stealing wedding rings, leaving shoelaces tied under beds for later use. When he struck, it was with surgical cruelty. He'd wake couples with a flashlight's glare, his voice a guttural rasp through a ski mask, ordering them to lie face down. Men were bound with cords, dishes stacked on their backs. If they fell, he'd kill. Women were raped repeatedly, sometimes for hours, their bodies trembling as he whispered threats, his gloved hands leaving bruises that 1980, Lyman and Charlene Smith's Ventura home became a slaughterhouse. DeAngelo bound them with drapery cord, the knots so tight they cut into their wrists. He raped Charlene, her screams muffled by a gag, then grabbed a fireplace log. He bludgeoned Lyman's skull until it splintered, blood and bone spraying the walls, his face a pulpy ruin. Charlene suffered the same. Her head caved in, her body left half nude, blood pooling beneath her, the room a tableau of carnage. In 1981, Cherry Domingo and Gregory Sanchez met a similar fate in Goleta. DeAngelo beat Cherry's head with a blunt object, her skull fracturing like porcelain, blood matting her hair as she lay sprawled on the floor. Gregory, a strapping man, fought back but was shot, then bludgeoned, his face unrecognizable, teeth scattered like dice. The most brutal was Janelle Cruz in 1986, who was only 18. DeAngelo raped her for hours, her wrists raw from bindings, then smashed her face with a pipe wrench. Her skull shattered. Blood and brain matter splattered the bedroom, her body left in a twisted heap, her eyes open, staring into nothingness. Each scene was a performance of horror. His knots, his dishes, his whispered taunts a signature that screamed control. DeAngelo's evasion was a chilling dance through California's blind spot. Known first as the East Area Rapist, then the original Night Stalker, he struck from Sacramento to Orange County, his crimes spanning a decade and defying connection. In the 1970s, DNA was science fiction. Police relied on fingerprints, tire tracks, or witness sketches, but DeAngelo left none. His masks, ski masks, hockey masks, burlap sacks with eye holes, hid his face, his eyes cold and unblinking. As a former officer, he knew police tactics, listening to scanners to dodge patrols, moving through neighborhoods on foot or bike, blending as a jogger or handyman. He'd call victims weeks before or after, his voice hissing through the line. "I'm going to kill you," or worse, breathing silently, letting their fear fill the silence. He struck randomly, across jurisdictions, leaving detectives chasing shadows. Between attacks, he melted into normalcy, raising daughters, grilling in his Citrus Heights backyard, his neighbors seeing only a gruff retiree. For 40 years, he was untouchable, his crimes fading into cold case files as survivors woke screaming, their lives fractured by memories of his hands, his voice, his weight. The case grew so cold that by the 2000s, many believed he died or fled, his terror a fading echo in California's suburbs. His unmasking came not from a chase, but from science's quiet persistence. In 2018, Sacramento investigators, desperate after decades of dead ends, turned to genetic genealogy. They uploaded crime scene DNA, semen from a 1980 rape murder, to GEDmatch, a public ancestry database. Genealogist Barbara Ray Venter spent months tracing distant relatives, building family trees until the trail led to DeAngelo, a 72-year-old retiree living just miles from his old Sacramento hunting ground. Police watched him for days, a gray-haired man, mowing his lawn, cursing at dogs, his scowl hiding the monster within. They collected his DNA, a discarded tissue, a coffee cup, and it matched a forensic guillotine. On April 24, 2018, SWAT teams swarmed his Citrus Heights home, cuffing him in his driveway as he stood stunned, his reign of terror collapsing. At trial, survivors faced him, their voices breaking as they recounted nights that never left them. DeAngelo, frail and wheelchair-bound, his face a mask of indifference, pleaded guilty in June 2020 to 13 murders and 13 rape-related charges. His "I'm truly sorry" was hollow, a formality spat out as he faced the wreckage of his making. The courtroom was a gallery of pain, wives, daughters, sisters, their tears a testament to lives stolen, futures erased. DeAngelo's fate is a cage in North Kern State Prison, where he was sent on August 21, 2020, to serve life without parole. At 79, he's a husk, his body frail but his eyes still sharp, holding secrets he'll never share. Survivors like Chris Pedretti, raped at 15 in 1976, spoke of decades lost to fear, her voice trembling as she faced him. Families of the dead, Lyman Smith's son, Janelle Cruz's mother, described lives hollowed by grief, holidays tainted by empty chairs. Yet DeAngelo's silence breeds unease. He's never confessed to other crimes, leaving whispers of unclaimed victims, nights no one survived to report. Some believe he'll die with those truths locked inside, his cold gaze a final taunt. The relief of his capture is fragile, shadowed by the knowledge that evil can wear a neighbor's face, mow a lawn, wave hello. California sleeps easier. But the scars remain, etched in blood and memory, a reminder that monsters walk among us unseen until it's too late. As the echo of D'Angelo's flashlight fades into the rain-soaked night, another shadow stirs, waiting to weave its own tale of terror. Two teenage girls, lost in the Alabama night, stepped into a darkness that would swallow them whole. In the sticky heat of July 31st, 1999, Coley McCraney was a nobody in Ozark, Alabama, a 25-year-old truck driver and part-time preacher, living a quiet life on Lisenby Drive with his young wife, Jeanette, and their budding family. To the world, he was a man of faith, his voice steady as he spoke of salvation in small church gatherings. But beneath this veneer, something festered, a hunger that would erupt into unspeakable violence. J.B. Beasley and Tracy Hallett, both 17, were inseparable friends. Their laughter, a bright thread in the fabric of Dothan, Alabama. That night, they set out in J.B.'s black Mazda 929 to celebrate her birthday at a field party in Headland, their hearts light, their futures unwritten. They never reached their destination. A wrong turn led them into Ozark and into the path of a predator. What twisted McCraney from a man of God to a monster? It was a fleeting encounter, prosecutors would later argue, a moment where chance met obsession, and his need for control consumed him. He saw two girls, vulnerable and lost, and chose to shatter their world. The descent began at 11:35 p.m. when Tracy called her mother, Carol, from a payphone at the Big Little Store, a Chevron station on East Broad Street. Her voice was calm, carrying no hint of the horror to come, as she explained they'd gotten lost, but had directions to head home. Witnesses saw them speaking to two women, one gesturing toward Highway 231. But somewhere in the humid dark, McCraney appeared, armed with a 9mm pistol, its cold steel glinting under the streetlights. He forced his way into their car. The girls' world shrank to the confines of that Mazda, their fear a living thing as he drove them to a secluded patch of woods off Herring Avenue. There, in the suffocating Alabama night, he unleashed his brutality. He raped J.B., her body trembling under the weight of his violence, her skin torn by briars as she was dragged through the underbrush. Then, with chilling precision, he pressed the gun to their heads, first J.B., then Tracy, and fired. Blood bloomed from their skulls, soaking the earth, their bodies crumpling into the mud. The act was swift, merciless, a theft of breath and future in mere seconds. The crime's signature was its grotesque efficiency, a detail so vivid it claws at the mind. On August 1st, 1999, a motorist spotted J.B.'s Mazda parked oddly on Herring Avenue, less than a mile from the Chevron. Inside the trunk, the girls' bodies were folded together, their limbs tangled in a macabre embrace. J.B.'s head bore a gaping exit wound, her blood pooling in the carpeted confines, her face frozen in a silent scream. Tracy's skull was shattered, fragments of bone mingling with the drying blood that matted her blonde hair. A single 9mm shell casing rested on J.B.'s abdomen, its brass surface catching the light, a taunting relic of the killer's precision. Semen stained J.B.'s shirt and underwear, a sickening trace of McCraney's violation. Their bodies told a story of struggle. Briar scratches raked their arms and legs. Mud caked their clothes, evidence they'd been dragged through the woods, their hands clawing at the earth in a futile fight for life. The trunk's lid had sealed them in, their final moments suffocated in darkness. Barry Tucker, a veteran Alabama Bureau of Investigation trooper, stumbled back from the scene, his stomach churning at the sight of those girls, forever 17, entombed in that metal coffin. The image burns into memory, two lives, vibrant and full, reduced to broken shells and a blood-soaked trunk. McCraney's ability to vanish into plain sight was a chilling feat. He wasn't a shadowy figure lurking in alleys. He was a pillar of Ozark's small community, a man who preached redemption while hiding his sin. Living just a mile from where the girls were found, he blended seamlessly into the rhythm of small-town life. He drove trucks, raised his children, and founded Spirit and Truth Lifeline Ministries in 2013, his sermons cloaking him in respectability. No fingerprints linked him to the Mazda. No witnesses recalled him near the girls that night. The DNA evidence, semen on JB's clothing, sat in a database unmatched as the case grew colder with each passing year. McCraney exploited the blind spot of his own normalcy, his preacher's smile, a mask that deflected suspicion. Even as police chased leads, over 300 interviews, countless dead ends, he stood at pulpits, his hands clean in the eyes of those who trusted him. His supporters, even after his arrest, rallied with signs reading Coley Strong, blind to the monster beneath the man. For 20 years, he walked free, the girl's blood a secret he carried in silence. The unraveling came in 2018, when Ozark police turned to Parabon Nanolabs, the same firm that unmasked the Golden State Killer. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore traced a relative's DNA on GEDmatch, narrowing the suspect pool to McCraney, a name that had never surfaced in the investigation. On March 15, 2019, police knocked on his door, shattering the life he'd built with Jeanette and their children. He gave a DNA sample without hesitation, perhaps believing his secret was still safe. It wasn't. The sample matched the semen on JB's clothing, a forensic noose tightening around him. At his trial in April 2023, McCraney took the stand, his voice steady as he spun a tale of consensual sex with JB, whom he claimed to have met weeks earlier at the Wiregrass Commons Mall. He called her Jennifer, said they'd planned to meet that night, that they'd been intimate in his truck while Tracy waited in the Mazda. But his story crumbled like ash. No diary entries, no phone records, no friends confirmed any prior connection. The jury saw the lie, convicting him on 4 counts of capital murder and rape. Prosecutor Steve Marshall's voice was iron. The evidence was undeniable. The truth a blade cutting through McCraney's fiction. Coley McCraney now sits in the William E. App. Donaldson Correctional Facility, sentenced to life without parole on April 26, 2023. From his cell, he told ABC's 2020, "You can't find a person who will tell you I'm violent." His voice eerily calm, as if the blood on his hands belonged to someone else. His appeals, including a July 2023 bid for a new trial citing juror misconduct and questionable DNA, have been denied, though his attorneys press on, sowing seeds of doubt for J.B. Heap and Tracy's families. The conviction brought a fragile peace after 24 years of torment. Carol Roberts, Tracy's mother, spoke of Christmases hollowed by loss, her daughter's absence a wound that never heals. Cheryl Burgoon, JB's mother, called her daughter a beautiful gift, her voice breaking as she recalled the girl who loved to sing. Yet McCraney's denials, his supporters' blind faith, leave a lingering unease, a whisper that the full truth might still lie buried in those Alabama woods, tangled in the briars where two girls fought for their lives. As this tale fades into shadow, a new nightmare begins. Courtney Coco was 19, a bright spark in Alexandria, Louisiana, with dreams as big as her smile. A criminal justice student at Northwestern State University, she loved baseball, her family, and the promise of a future she was building. But on October 1st, 2004, she vanished, and the man who stole her life was closer than anyone could imagine. David Anthony Burns, 46, was the fiancé of Courtney's older sister, Lace Evans, a man woven into the family's fabric. To the outside world, he was a rough-edged but familiar figure living in Boise, Louisiana, with no criminal record to raise alarms. Yet something dark simmered within him, a greed or rage that would erupt into violence. Prosecutors later argued it was money, Courtney's $20,000 inheritance payout from her father's death, that drew him to her. That night, as Courtney drove home alone, Burns saw an opportunity, and his descent into murder began with a single fatal choice. It was a Friday evening, the air thick with the promise of squirrel seed. Courtney had spent it with friends, playing dominoes at her apartment, laughing over clinking glasses, before they stopped at a gas station. She dropped them off and headed home, her 1999 green Pontiac Bonneville humming through Alexandria's quiet streets. Burns, prosecutors believed, was waiting. He knew Courtney had come into money, a windfall from her father's estate, and he wanted it. Some whispered he was also entangled in a secret affair with her, a betrayal of his engagement to Lace. Whatever the truth, he lured or forced her into a confrontation at her home. There, in the stillness of her own space, he attacked. Detectives believe he strangled her, his hands tightening around her throat as she gasped, her body thrashing against the comforter on her bed, her face turned blue, her eyes wide with terror, until life left her. Burns, cold and calculated, wrapped her body in that same comforter, its fabric now a shroud, and stuffed her into the trunk of her own car. He drove 200 miles to Winnie, Texas, dumping her in an abandoned building, her body left to rot under the humid Gulf Coast sun. The crime's signature was its grim efficiency, a scene so stark it haunts like a photograph burned into memory. On October 4, 2004, a farmer in Winnie spotted something near an old, crumbling house off I-10. Courtney's body lay there, partially clothed, her white dental assistant's lab coat still tucked inside her car, miles away. Her corpse was so decomposed that the medical examiner couldn't pinpoint the cause of death, though strangulation was suspected. Her skin was discolored, blackening from the waist up, the humid air accelerating decay. Mud and debris clung to her, evidence of being dragged across the ground, her body discarded like refuse. Her high school graduation ring, inscribed with her name, was the only clue tying her to Alexandria, glinting on her finger amidst the ruin. A week later, her Pontiac was found in Houston, its interior eerily intact, her lab coat, her purse untouched, as if she'd step back into it any moment. Tire marks at the dump site hinted at a hasty escape, but no fingerprints or DNA tied anyone to the scene. The image of Courtney, vibrant and full of life, reduced to a decomposing shell in that lonely building, is a wound that lingers, raw and unhealed. Burns evaded justice for 17 years, hiding in the open with chilling ease. He wasn't a drifter or a known criminal. He was Lace's fiancé, a man who shared meals with Courtney's family, his presence unremarkable. He lived in Boyce, a short drive from Alexandria, blending into the rhythm of small-town life. The investigation stalled early. No witnesses saw him with Courtney that night, and her phone, found with a teenage boy who'd bought it for $10 from two men, led nowhere. The boy's story was a dead end, the men untraceable. Police interviewed over 100 people, including Courtney's ex-boyfriend and friends with minor criminal records. But Burns never surfaced as a suspect. An empty safe in Courtney's home, possibly holding her inheritance, raised questions, but no evidence linked it to him. He carried on, his engagement to Lace dissolving over time, his life unmarked by suspicion. Even as Courtney's mother, Stephanie Bellegarde, pleaded for answers, Burns stayed silent, his ordinariness a perfect shield. Whispers of his involvement only emerged years later when a podcast stirred the case back to life. The breakthrough came in 2019 when Stephanie contacted Woody Overton, a former homicide detective turned podcaster. His series, Who Killed Courtney Coco, on Real Life, Real Crime, ran for 18 episodes, reigniting public interest. Tips flooded in, including one from Tiffany Cedars, who claimed her ex-husband, Shamus Setliff, Burns' best friend, had heard Burns confess. Setliff's recorded words were damning. Lace and Anthony did it. They did it for money. Though Lace was never charged, the tip pointed police to Burns. In April 2021, Detective Tanner Dryden arrested him, charging him with second-degree murder. At trial in October 2022, the prosecution painted a grim picture. Burns, driven by greed or a twisted affair, killed Courtney and dumped her body. Lace testified against him, admitting they'd argued that weekend, and Burns was unaccounted for until Monday, when Courtney's body was found. Witnesses, claimed Burns, had bragged about the murder, saying her body was black waist up. He pleaded not guilty, his defense arguing the evidence was circumstantial, the cause of death unproven. But the jury, after 90 minutes, convicted him. The weight of witness testimony and his ties to Courtney too heavy to dismiss. Burns' final fate is a life sentence without parole, handed down on November 28, 2022, in a Rapids Parish courtroom. Judge Mary Doggett's gavel fell as Stephanie wept. Her 18-year fight for justice finally answered. Burns, now 46, sits in a Louisiana prison, his claims of innocence drowned out by the evidence. Stephanie spoke of Courtney's love for life, her baseball games, her dreams of a career in criminal justice, all stolen. "I can't fix this," she told Dateline, her voice breaking. The case left scars. Lace's testimony, tinged with suspicion from some who believed she knew more, stirred unease. Setliff's recording, implicating her alongside Burns, was dismissed by prosecutors, but whispers persist. Did Burns act alone? Was the money really the motive, or was something darker? A betrayal, a secret, buried with Courtney, the empty safe, the tire marks, the phone sold for $10. These fragments haunt, leaving a shadow of doubt. Stephanie carries on, her daughter's absence a weight each October, when the Louisiana air turns crisp and the pain feels fresh. As the image of Courtney's body, abandoned in that Texas ruin, fades like a dream dissolving into mist, another darkness stirs, another life snuffed out, waiting to haunt the night, waiting to haunt the night. Peter William Sutcliffe was a truck driver from Bingley, Yorkshire, a quiet man, with a wife, Sonia, and a life that seemed ordinary. Born in 1946 to a working-class family, he grew up in a home where his father's fists bruised his mother, planting seeds of contempt for women. By 1975, at 29, he was unraveling, his marriage strained, his job as a lorry driver a cover for nocturnal hunts, a twisted rage fed by years of feeling small and weak drove him to the streets. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted to destroy, to purge what he called filth. His first known attack came in 1969, a hammer blow to a woman's head, but it was 1975 when he fully descended into murder. Wilma McCann, a 28-year-old mother of four, was his first victim. Her life snuffed out in a Leeds alley, setting off a 5-year reign of terror that would claim at least 13 lives and leave northern England gripped by fear. Sutcliffe's crimes were marked by a signature so brutal it clawed into the soul. He targeted women, many of them sex workers, in the red light districts of Leeds, Bradford, and Manchester, wielding hammers, screwdrivers, and knives with savage precision. His attacks were rituals of destruction. On October 30th, 1975, Wilma McCann stumbled home after a night out, drunk and vulnerable. Sutcliffe lured her into a dark corner of Prince Philip playing fields, smashing her skull with a hammer, the blows so fierce her head caved in, blood pooling in the grass. He stabbed her 15 times in the chest and abdomen, her body left splayed, her clothes torn, a grotesque display of his hatred. In January 1976, Emily Jackson, 42, a mother scraping by through sex work, met the same fate outside the Gaiety pub. Sutcliffe crushed her skull with 3 hammer blows, then stabbed her 52 times with a screwdriver, her chest and stomach shredded, a boot print stamped into her thigh from his frenzied attack. Jean Jordan, a 20-year-old prostitute in Manchester, was killed in October 1977, her head battered, her body hidden under a hedge. Days later, he returned, mutilating her corpse with 11 stab wounds, her intestines spilling out, her handbag left with a new £5 sterling note to taunt police. Mary Jane Kelly's murder in 1888, often linked to Jack the Ripper, inspired his moniker, but Sutcliffe's violence was his own. Each body a canvas of rage, left half-naked, battered, and bleeding, a testament to his need to degrade. His most horrific killing was Jacqueline Hill, a 20-year-old Leeds University student. In November 1980, he dragged her into a bush, hammered her skull until it fractured, stabbed her eyes to blind her even in death, and slashed her chest, leaving her body exposed on a grassy bank, her books scattered nearby. The image of these women, Wilma's blood-soaked hair, Emily's mangled torso, Jean's disemboweled remains, Jacqueline's sightless eyes, burns like a nightmare. Each scene a brutal signature of a man who saw women as prey. Sutcliffe's ability to evade capture was a chilling exploit of police failures and societal blindness. From 1975 to 1980, he killed and attacked across West Yorkshire, yet was interviewed 9 times without arrest. As a truck driver, he roamed freely, his lorry logs placing him far from crimes when police checked. He struck in busy red light districts, blending into the night, his car, a red Ford Corsair or later, a Rover, just another vehicle in the urban sprawl. His wife, Sonia, never suspected, believing his late nights were work. Police were overwhelmed, their investigation buried under 11,000 interviews and index cards so heavy they needed reinforced floors. A hoax tape and letters signed Jack the Ripper by a man dubbed Wareside Jack derailed the hunt for months. The tape's voice, with a Sunderland accent, mocked Assistant Chief Constable George Oldfield. "I'm Jack. You're no nearer catching me now than 4 years ago." Police chased the wrong accent, ignoring Sutcliffe's Yorkshire drawl, even as survivors described a man matching his build, stocky, dark-haired, bearded. Sexism blinded investigators. They dismissed attacks on non-sex workers like Jane McDonald, a 16-year-old shop assistant killed in 1977, as unrelated, believing the Ripper only targeted prostitutes. Sutcliffe exploited this. Striking students, office workers, anyone who crossed his path, knowing police wouldn't connect the dots. He lived openly, parking his car near crime scenes, even returning to Jean Jordan's body to mutilate it further. Yet no one noticed. His normalcy, his job, his marriage, his quiet demeanor was his shield, letting him slip through a manhunt that cost millions and broke officers like Oldfield, whose health crumbled under the strain. The net closed by chance, not cunning. On January 2nd, 1981, police in Sheffield stopped Sutcliffe's Rover for false plates, finding him with a 24-year-old prostitute, Olivia Reevers. A routine check revealed knives and a hammer in his car, and his description matched survivor accounts. At Dewsbury Station, he confessed after 2 days, calmly detailing his crimes, claiming God's voice from a Polish man's headstone during his gravedigger days ordered him to clean the streets. He showed no remorse, calling his victims filth and bastard prostitutes, except for Jane McDonald, whose youth stirred a flicker of regret. The hoaxer, John Samuel Humble, was unmasked in 2005, his deception costing lives. At trial in May 1981, Sutcliffe pleaded diminished responsibility, citing schizophrenia, but the jury rejected it, convicting him of 13 murders and 7 attempted murders. His wife, Sonia, learned the truth from him post-arrest, her shock echoing the disbelief of friends who saw him as a nice guy. The case exposed police failings, later dissected in the 1981 Byford Report, which revealed missed clues and urged reforms. Sutcliffe's crimes, linked to 22 more unsolved cases, left a shadow of doubt. How many others died by his hand? Sutcliffe's fate was sealed, with 20 life sentences, upgraded to a whole life order in 2010, ensuring he'd never walk free. He served at Aching Prison Parkhurst, then Broadmoor Hospital, after a 1984 schizophrenia diagnosis, and finally Ham Prison Franklin, where he died of COVID-19 complications on November 13, 2020, at 74. In prison, he faced attacks. An inmate slashed his face, another stabbed his eye, but he never recanted his divine mission. Survivors like Tracy Brown, a 14-year-old hammered in 1975, and families like Wilma McCann's son. Richard, then 5, carried scars forever. The trial's Attorney General, Sir Michael Havers, sparked outrage by calling non-sex worker victims respectable, as if others deserved their fate. Nina Lopez of the English Collective of Prostitutes protested, her voice echoing the era's misogyny that let Sutcliffe kill for so long. Leeds and Bradford lived under curfews, women taunted as they walked alone. The Ripper's shadow turning streets into traps. The Byford Report, made public in 2006, confirmed police errors like ignoring survivor descriptions and fixating on the hope. Some, like authors Chris Clark and Tim Tate, argue Sutcliffe killed more, pointing to Judith Roberts in 1972 and Carol Wilkinson in 1977. Their bodies posed like his, yet no further charges came. The unanswered questions, missing evidence, unlinked crimes, leave a chill, a sense that justice was incomplete. Stephanie Bellegarde, whose daughter Courtney Coco was killed in 2004, knew this pain, her fight for answers mirroring Yorkshire's grief. As the echo of Sutcliffe's hammer fades into the misty Yorkshire night, another killer's shadow looms, waiting to stain the darkness with blood. Jason Redmond, a 43-year-old Ontario Provincial Police (OPP) constable, walked the streets of Leeds County, his badge glinting under streetlights, a symbol of trust to those who didn't know his secret. To his colleagues, he was a skilled officer, a top graduate from the police academy in the mid-2000s, known for his sharp instincts and charm in the local bar scene. But beneath the uniform, Redmond was a predator, his life a tangle of drugs, violence, and betrayal. By 2015, his double life began to unravel, exposing crimes that would shock the community: sexual assault, drug trafficking, and a string of violent assaults. Yet he remained on the op payroll, suspended with pay, collecting $121,047 in 2021 alone, as victims waited for justice. The first crack in Redmond's facade came in November 2015, when Project Arrowtown, an 18-month sting operation, targeted corrupt officers in Leeds County. Undercover police, posing as petty criminals, caught Redmond trafficking marijuana and forging documents. In October 2018, he pleaded guilty to the drug charge and was convicted of forgery, but the judge handed down just 1 year of probation, no jail time. The ops suspended him with pay, bound by the Police Services Act, which allowed officers to keep their salaries unless convicted and incarcerated. Redmond, free to roam, sank deeper into his darkness. In December 2017, he committed a crime so vile it would haunt the victim forever. At a house in Brockville, after a day of drinking and cocaine use with a woman he knew, Redmond waited until she passed out, her body limp from alcohol and drugs. He raped her, his hands violating her unconscious form, and recorded it on his phone, laughing as he did it to prove she had a drinking problem and teach her a lesson. The video, later described in court, showed her motionless, her dignity stolen, as Redmond bragged to friends, showing the recording to at least 3 people, one stumbling upon it by chance. He mocked her, saying, "Anybody could rape her," his voice dripping with cruelty, the woman's body a prop in his twisted game. The op learned of the video in 2021, launching a criminal investigation that led to Redmond's arrest for sexual assault in October. He pleaded not guilty, claiming her lack of memory wasn't proof of non-consent, but the evidence was damning. Witnesses testified he boasted about the assault, laughing as he showed the video, his intent clear to humiliate. On February 16, 2023, Ontario Court Justice Janet O'Brien convicted him in a Brockville courtroom, ruling the victim was unconscious, unable to consent, her body betrayed by Redmond's actions. The Crown, led by Peter Napier, pushed for 5 to 7 years, calling the assault horrendous and noting Redmond's litany of torment. His lawyer, Karen Stein, argued for 3 years, citing his need for rehabilitation. On June 15, 2023, O'Brien sentenced him to 6 years in Central North Correctional Center in Penetanguishene, with a lifetime weapons ban, DNA submission, and a 10-year sex offender registry order. He was barred from contacting the victim, whose identity is protected by a publication ban. Yet, even as he was led away, Redmond filed an appeal on July 14, 2023, challenging both conviction and sentence, his camera flickering off during virtual hearings, a small act of defiance that frustrated the court. Redmond's crimes didn't stop with the sexual assault. Between 2019 and 2021, another woman, also protected by a publication ban, endured his violence. In a toxic relationship fueled by cocaine and crack, Redmond attacked her repeatedly, his rage leaving her bloodied and bruised. He choked her, his hands squeezing her throat until she gasped for air, punched her face, leaving blackened eyes, and pushed her into walls, her body marked with red welts and dried blood. In one brutal incident, he cut her with a knife during an argument, the blade slicing her skin, blood dripping as she screamed. Photos shown in court captured her injuries, bruises blooming across her face, cuts on her arms, blood crusted on her lip. 7 witnesses, including a child, testified to seeing her injuries, though Redmond's lawyer questioned their credibility, noting the child's age and the woman's drug use. The Crown, led by Lorne Goldstein, painted Redmond as a violent and angry man, his cocaine and alcohol binges fueling his attacks. Initially charged with 17 offenses in 2021, including 6 counts of assault, 3 counts of assault causing bodily harm, 1 count of assault with a weapon, and 1 count of failing to provide necessities of life, 6 charges were dropped. On June 9, 2023, Justice Donna Hackett convicted him of 9 counts, 5 assaults, 3 causing bodily harm, and 1 with a weapon, acquitting him of an assault on an infant and the necessities charge. On August 17, 2023, Hackett sentenced him to 3 more years, consecutive to his 6-year term, totaling 9 years in Dorchester Penitentiary, New Brunswick, The victim of the 2017 sexual assault, known as Jane Doe, fought back in a different way. Fought back in a different way. On August 19, 2025, she sued Redmond for $375,000 in damages, plus legal fees and interest, in a Brockville courtroom. Her lawyer, Gillian Nadeau, argued the assault left her with crippling anxiety and PTSD. Her job as a bartender hindered by fear in public spaces, costing her tips and income. Redmond's harassment didn't end with the assault. He showed the video to her friends, threatened to show it to her daughter and future partners, and tormented her at work, paying a remote jukebox to play Loser by Beck repeatedly during her shift. His lawyer denied he shared the video, claiming her pre-existing mental health and substance issues negated new damages. But Judge Patrick Hurley questioned how those caused her assault. Hurley's decision, expected by November 2025, could force Redmond to pay for the pain he inflicted, though his prison term limits his ability to respond. Redmond's ability to remain on the op payroll for over 7 years, despite 12 convictions, sparked outrage. The Police Services Act, unamended until 2019 and not yet enacted, tied the op's hands. Officers could only be suspended without pay after incarceration. Commissioner Thomas Carrick called Redmond's actions disgraceful and criminal, undermining honest officers. The op sought his dismissal since 2018, but his appeals delayed it until June 15, 2023, when his sexual assault sentencing finally cost him his badge. His reputation as a trusted member of Brockville's bar crowd, noted in a 2016 All-Pay report, hid his crimes for years, his charm a mask for violence. Project Arrowtown, involving RCMP and Montreal police, exposed his drug trafficking, yet his 2018 probation let him slip through, free to commit worse crimes. The community reeled. Redmond, once a promising recruit, had betrayed his oath. His victims left with scars, both visible and unseen. The victim's pain painted a grim picture. Jane Doe's impact statement in 2023 described a life unmoored, constant paranoia, no funds for therapy, her mental health hanging by a thread as Redmond lived comfortably on taxpayer money. The second woman, her face bruised and bloodied in court photos, delayed reporting, intimidated by Redmond's badge. Justice Hackett noted the fear of reporting a cop, her ruling a nod to the power imbalance. Redmond's total of 12 convictions, drug trafficking, forgery, sexual assault, and 9 assaults, unfolded while he wore the op uniform, a betrayal that shook Brockville. His appeal of the sexual assault conviction still pending in 2025, and the civil lawsuit keep his name in court, a reminder of his crimes. The 17 charges from 2021, reduced to 11 and resulting in 9 convictions, closed one chapter, but his drug-fueled violence and the video's lingering threat haunt his victims. Redmond's fate is 9 years behind bars, his appeals a fading hope. The civil suit could strip him of what little he has left. Jane Doe's fight for restitution, a final stand. Brockville, a town of quiet streets and river views, bears the stain of his crimes, its trust in the op shaken. The Police Services Act, under scrutiny, may change to prevent such prolonged paid suspensions, but for now, Redmond's victims carry the heaviest burden. Jane Doe's PTSD, the second woman's bruises, the community's shock. These are the true costs of his betrayal. The unanswered questions, how many others suffered, how he hid so long, linger like smoke, a reminder that even those sworn to protect can become predators. As Redmond's shadow fades in Brockville's snowy dusk, another darkness stirs, another tale of betrayal waiting to unfold. A Tokyo night turned cold as blood soaked the floor of a family's home. In Setagaya's quiet suburb, the Miyazawa family, Mikio 44, Yasuko 41, Nie 8, and Rei 6, slept soundly on December 30th, 2000. Mikio was a creative director with a sharp mind. Yasuko, a gentle teacher who ran a tutoring school, their children bright with dreams of their own. But a shadow, known only as the Zeitgeist Killer, crept through their back window, his sashimi knife glinting in the moonlight. What drove him to slaughter an entire family? No theft, no grudge, just a chilling void where motive should have been. A need to destroy, to unravel lives for reasons only he knew. He moved with purpose, his gloved hands steady, his heart a furnace of unspoken rage, leaving behind one of Japan's most baffling crimes, a wound that festers unsolved in Tokyo's memory. The attack was a storm of calculated violence, each strike a deliberate act of erasure. Mikio woke first, stirred by a faint noise, perhaps a creak from the window near the bathroom. He descended the stairs, his footsteps soft, unaware of the figure waiting in the dark. The killer lunged, plunging the sashimi knife into Mikio's chest, the blade slicing through muscle and bone. Blood sprayed across the wooden stairs, a crimson arc painting the walls as Mikio staggered, his hands clutching at the wound, his gasps drowned by the night. He collapsed, his body a broken heap, blood pooling beneath him, his eyes frozen in shock. Yasuko and Naina, roused by his cry, rushed from their second-floor bedroom, their bare feet slapping against the floor. The killer was already there, his knife a blur. He slashed Yasuko's throat, her blood gushing in a hot torrent, soaking her nightgown as she fell, her hands reaching for Naina. The girl, small and fierce, fought back, her tiny fists swinging, but the knife carved into her neck and face, 6 deep wounds tearing through her soft skin. Blood streamed down her pajamas, her body crumpling beside her mother's, their hands inches apart in a final futile reach. Ray, asleep in his attic room, never stirred. The killer climbed the ladder, his shadow falling over the boy's bed, his shadow falling over the boy's bed. He wrapped his hands around Ray's throat, squeezing until the child's body went limp, his face pale, his small chest still. The knife broke during the frenzy, forcing the killer to grab a kitchen knife from the Miyazawa's drawer to finish his work. The house became a slaughterhouse. Blood dripped from the stairs, smeared the walls, and soaked the carpet, the air thick with the coppery stench of death. The family's Shiba Inu, Maria, whimpered in a corner, spared by the killer's indifference. The scene was a nightmare, etched in red. Mikio's body sprawled on the stairs, Yasuko and Naina tangled in a blood-soaked embrace, Ray curled in his attic bed, their lives stolen in minutes. The killer's signature was not just the carnage, but his chilling audacity, a violation that lingered like a curse. He stayed in the house for nearly 10 hours, defiling the Miyazawa's sanctuary with a casual cruelty. He raided their fridge, eating 4 cups of melon ice cream, leaving the spoon smudged with his fingerprints on the counter. He drank their barley tea, the bottle left half empty, his lips leaving traces of DNA. He used their computer, browsing websites until 1:18 a.m., his blood, type A, from a cut on his hand, dripping onto the keyboard and mouse. He rummaged through Yasuko's drawers, scattering her sanitary napkins, using tin to bandage his wound, leaving them stained with his blood. His DNA was everywhere, on a tissue, a fanny pack, the couch, mingling with the family's blood, a genetic taunt to police. He left behind a black Hankyu department store bag, a fluorescent jacket, a cap, and a scarf, all mass-produced in Tokyo, yet untraceable. Sand in his bag, traced to Edwards Air Force Base in California, hinted at a military connection, but led nowhere. He treated the house like his own, even using the toilet, leaving it unflushed, a final insult. A final insult. When he left, he walked out the front door, leaving it ajar, the Miyazawa's bodies cooling in their own blood, their home a silent grave. The image sears into memory. Naina's blood-soaked pajamas, Mikio's chest gaping open, Yasuko's lifeless hand stretched toward her daughter, Rai's small form alone in the attic, the ice cream spoon glinting on the counter, the ice cream spoon glinting on the counter, a relic of a killer's arrogance. Demi knows, give her back in tears. The Zeitgeist killer vanished into Tokyo's sprawl, his evasion a masterclass in exploiting anonymity. Japan's police, renowned for precision, mobilized 280,000 officers, chased 40,000 tips, and collected 14,000 pieces of evidence, yet he slipped through every crack. His DNA revealed a man of mixed Korean-Japanese descent, likely in his 20s, 5'7" to 5'9", slim, with type of blood. But Japan's limited DNA database, strict privacy laws, and lack of international data sharing meant no match. His clothes, a Slazenger jacket, Adidas sneakers, a Uniqlo scarf, were sold in thousands of stores, impossible to trace. The sand from his bag, linked to a U.S. military base, sparked theories of a soldier or contractor, but military records yielded nothing. He struck in a busy neighborhood, the Miyazawa's home backing onto a skate park where teens gathered late, yet no one saw him enter or leave. The park's paths and alleys offered easy escape, and he knew it. His fingerprints, only on the spoon, were too smudged to use. His blood, found in 11 places, mocked investigators, a perfect clue with no owner. He was a ghost in a city of millions, his face lost in the crowd, a salaryman, a student, a neighbor, his secret buried in a heart that felt no guilt. For years, police chased shadows, questioning locals, testing DNA, scouring shop records, but the trail went cold. The killer's ordinariness, his greatest shield. The case remains a gaping wound, with no capture to close it. On December 31st, 2000, Yasuko's mother, Setsuko, found the bodies, her scream shattering the morning calm. Police swarmed the house, sealing it as a crime scene, collecting DNA, fibers, and the killer's belongings, a treasure trove that led nowhere. A 20 million yen reward drew thousands of tips, but none panned out. In 2019, advanced DNA analysis refined the profile. A father of Korean descent, a Japanese mother, likely born between 1975 and 1980. Yet Japan's cultural resistance to genetic testing and a statute of limitations on murder, lifted only in 2010, stalled progress. Detectives tested sand from Nevada to California, interviewed clerks who sold the killer's jacket, even reenacted the crime annually, hoping to jog memories. Podcasters and sleuths speculated Yakuza, a drifter, a military brat, but no suspect emerged. The Miyazawa's home, preserved for years, became a shrine, Setsuko visiting daily to light incense, her grief a quiet vigil. The case, Japan's most infamous unsolved murder, cost over 3 billion yen, a monument to failure. The killer's DNA sits in a lab, a ticking clock. If he's alive, he could confess and walk free under old laws, a chilling possibility that haunts investigators. The Zeitgeist killer's fate is a void, a shadow that lingers in Setagaya's quiet streets. He may walk among Tokyo's crowds, now in his 40s or 50s, his hands clean, his secret safe, or he may be dead, his truth buried forever. Setsuko, now frail, tends the family's graves, her life defined by loss. Mikio's brother, Anji, speaks of Nina's love for drawing, Rai's shy giggle, memories stolen by a stranger's night. The community mourns, leaving flowers at the empty house, its windows dark, its silence heavy. Each December, police distribute flyers, hoping for a breakthrough, but the killer's face remains a blank. The killer's face remains a blank. His DNA, his sand, his ice cream spoon. These fragments taunt, offering clues without answers. The case mirrors others, like the anguish of families left waiting, their pain a universal thread. Did he kill for thrill, for hate, or for nothing at all? The questions fester, a reminder that evil can slip through the cracks of even the tightest net, leaving only blood and silence behind. As the echo of the Miyazawa's blood-soaked home fades into Tokyo's neon haze, another shadow stirs, another killer waiting to etch their terror into the night. A winter night in Anchorage, Alaska, cloaked the city in darkness as a predator moved through the shadows. Israel Keys, a 34-year-old contractor, father, and Army veteran, stepped out of his white pickup truck on February 1st, 2012, his eyes locked on the Common Grounds espresso coffee stand. Inside, 18-year-old barista Samantha Koenig worked alone, the neon glow of the stand a beacon in the snow. Keys, a man who blended into society with chilling ease, was no ordinary criminal. Born January 7, 1978, in Richmond, Utah, to a devout Mormon family, he was the second of 10 children raised in a remote Washington cabin without electricity or running water after his parents rejected their faith. His childhood was marked by isolation, homeschooling, and early signs of psychopathy, torturing animals, stealing guns, and setting fires. By 2001, after an honorable discharge from the Army, Keys began a 14-year reign of terror, killing at least 3, possibly 11, across the United States. His meticulous planning making him one of America's most elusive serial killers. Keys's crimes were a masterclass in calculated brutality, each act a chilling performance of control. On that February night, he approached Samantha Koenig's coffee stand just before closing, pulling a .22 caliber handgun. He demanded money, and when she complied, he zip-tied her wrists, forced her into his truck, and drove to his Anchorage home. There, in a shed behind his house, where his girlfriend and daughter slept, he raped and strangled her, her body crumpling in the cold. Keyes then staged a macabre ruse, propping her corpse for a proof-of-life photo to demand $30,000 ransom from her family, using her stolen debit card to withdraw funds. After a 2-week cruise with his family, he returned, dismembered her body, and dumped the remains in Matanuska Lake, where divers later recovered them. In June 2011, he struck in Essex, Vermont, targeting Bill and Lorraine Currier, a couple in their 50s chosen at random. Keyes flew from Alaska, rented a car, and drove 1,000 miles, retrieving a buried kill kit, a Home Depot bucket with guns, zip ties, Drano, and a shovel. He broke into their home through the garage, shattering glass, and bound them with zip ties. He drove them to an abandoned farmhouse, where he shot Bill in the basement, blood pooling on the concrete, and raped and strangled Lorraine, her body left beside her husband's. Their remains were never found, the farmhouse demolished, leaving only traces of decomposition. Keyes confessed to a 2001 murder in Nia Bay, Washington, submerging a woman's body in Lake Crescent, her pale skin and old car his only descriptors. Blood and bones on his boat hinted at another kill between April and May 2005, possibly Wendy DeHoop or Stephen Mason, both missing near Nia Bay area. Each crime bore his signature. No victim profile, random selection, and kill kits buried years in advance. Duct tape, ropes, and chemicals to erase evidence. The scenes: Samantha's frozen corpse, the Currier's blood-soaked basement, a lake hiding bones. Paint a portrait of a killer who saw murder as a game, his victims mere pieces on a board. Keyes' ability to evade capture was a nightmare for law enforcement. From 1996 to 2012, he crisscrossed the U.S., funding his kills with bank robberies and burglaries, 20 to 30 homes and banks, like the Community Bank in Tupper Lake, New York, in 2009, where he wore a human hair wig, New York, in 2009, possibly from victim James Tidwell. The way they stayed down there. His Army training honed his precision. He buried kill kits in at least 4 states: New York, Washington, Vermont, Alaska, containing weapons like a .22 caliber Ruger with a silencer, shovels, and lye to dissolve bodies. He flew to cities, rented cars, and drove thousands of miles, avoiding credit cards or plane tickets with weapons to stay untraceable. In interviews, he admitted studying serial killers like Ted Bundy, whom he admired for his cross-country kills, and John Douglas's Mindhunter, learning what not to do. He shunned media attention, fearing his daughter would suffer, and mocked Dennis Rader as a wimp for remorse, while praising Robert Hanson's Alaskan murders. Keyes' double life was seamless, living with his girlfriend and daughter in Anchorage, running Keyes Construction. He was a doting father by day, a predator by night. His lack of a victim type, men, women, young, old, made patterns impossible to detect. He struck in remote areas, hiking trails, campgrounds, leaving no DNA, no witnesses. His 1996 rape of a 14 to 18-year-old girl in Alaska set his pattern. Strike far from home, vanish. The FBI's Unabomb Task Force overwhelmed, couldn't connect his crimes, his kill kits a secret only he knew, their locations locked in his mind. The net closed by chance, not brilliance. After Samantha Koenig's abduction, police monitored her debit card, tracking withdrawals across Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. On March 13, 2012, in Lufkin, Texas, a highway patrol officer stopped Keyes' rented white Ford Focus for a traffic violation. A search revealed Samantha's ID, debit card, cell phone, and a gun, alongside ski masks and banknotes stained with dye. Extradited to Anchorage, Keyes confessed to Samantha's murder on March 26th, calmly detailing her rape and death. Over 7 months, he teased investigators with partial truths, admitting to the Courier's murders and a 2001 Washington kill, but withholding names and locations. He demanded an execution date within a year, refusing to name more victims unless his identity stayed private to protect his daughter. The FBI, led by Special Agents Jolene Gooden and Catherine Nelson, uncovered a kill kit at Blake Falls Reservoir, New York, with a handgun, silencer, and zip ties, but no butt. Keyes' interviews, released by the Anchorage Daily News in 2018, revealed a man who enjoyed killing, chuckling, as he described, outsmarting police. His fascination with serial killers, Bundy, Hansen, and books like Intensity by Dean Koontz fueled his methods, even mimicking Bundy's 1978 court escape, though guards swiftly caught him. His Anchorage home, searched after his arrest, held dozens of true crime books, his obsession with murder a library of its own. The FBI suspected 11 victims based on 11 skulls he drew in his own blood under his jail cell bed, each with upside-down crucifixes, possibly a nod to Satanism from his youth in a militia-based church called the Ark. Keyes' end came by his own hand, robbing justice of answers. And on December 2, 2012, in his Anchorage cell, he slashed his wrist with a razor blade embedded in a pencil and strangled himself with bedding, leaving a blood-soaked suicide note on yellow legal paper. The note, analyzed by the FBI in Virginia, was a chilling ode to murder, your face framed in dark curls like a portrait. The sun shone through highlights of red. What color, I wonder, and how straight will it turn plastered back with the sweat of your blood? No hidden codes, no victim names, just a poem of glee at killing. The FBI found no investigative leads in it, only his twisted pride. His death halted the trial for Samantha's murder, set for March 2013. Leaving 8 potential victims unidentified. Prosecutors had ATM records, DNA, and travel receipts linking him to the Couriers and Samantha. But others, like Randy Ann Mollitz-Gorenberg in 2007 or Deborah Feldman in 2079, remained unconfirmed. His kill kits, possibly still buried, haunt investigators who fear more bodies lie undiscovered. Keyes' legacy is a void of unresolved pain. Samantha Koenig's memorial at Matanuska Lake stands for all his victims, their families left with questions. The Courier's Essex home, marked by yellow ribbons in 2011, became a symbol of loss, their bodies unrecovered. Keyes' daughter, her name private, lives with the shadow of his crimes. Her safety, his one expressed concern. The FBI keeps the case open, urging tips via 1-800-CALL-FBI or FBI Gov tips, hoping to uncover caches or bodies. His methods: random victims, kill kits, cross-country travel, set him apart, earning him the title of America's most meticulous serial killer, as Maureen Callahan notes in American Predator. His childhood, steeped in isolation and violence, and his army-honed skills crafted a predator who saw the U.S. as his hunting ground. The 11 skulls, drawn in blood, taunt investigators, each a possible life snuffed out. His motives: pleasure, control, outsmarting police, remain a dark puzzle, his suicide a final act of defiance. As Keyes's blood-soaked note fades in Anchorage's cold light, another killer's shadow looms, waiting to carve their terror into the night. A Montana night hummed with silence, broken only by the scratch of a pen in a lonely cabin. Theodore John Kaczynski, a 36-year-old recluse, sat in his 10 by 12-foot shack near Lincoln, Montana in 1978, his mind a storm of rage against a world he despised. Born in Chicago in 1942 to Polish-American parents, Ted was a math prodigy, his IQ of 167 propelling him to Harvard at 16. But brilliance came with isolation. A traumatic hospital stay at 6 months, separated from his mother, left him withdrawn, and skipping 2 grades made him a target for bullets. At Harvard, he endured Henry Murray's brutal psychological experiments, 3 years of verbal abuse that scarred his psyche. By 1969, after earning a Ph.D. at Michigan and teaching at Berkeley, he quit, fleeing society for a primitive life in Montana. There, surrounded by wilderness, his hatred for technology festered, birthing the Unabomber, a lone terrorist who would kill 3 and injure 23 over 17 years, driven by a belief that industrial society was strangling human freedom. Kaczynski's attacks were cold, calculated, and cruel, each bomb a message carved in shrapnel. He began in May 1978, mailing a package to Northwestern University's Buckley Christ, who hadn't sent it. Campus police officer Terry Marker opened it, and it exploded, leaving minor cuts and burns. Kaczynski, working briefly at a foam factory in Chicago with his brother David, had returned to plant the bomb, his first strike against academia, a symbol of technological progress. In 1979, he targeted American Airlines Flight 444 with a bomb in the cargo hold. It smoked but didn't detonate, sparing 78 lives. In 1980, United Airlines President Percy Wood opened a mail package at his home, the explosion tearing into his hands and face, leaving him bloodied but alive. Kaczynski's devices grew deadlier. In 1985, Hugh Scruton, a Sacramento computer store owner, picked up a package outside his shop. The bomb shredded his chest, blood pooling on the pavement as he died. Kaczynski's first murder. In 1993, Yale professor David Galerner opened a package in his office. The blast ripping off fingers and burning his body, his survival a miracle amid blood and debris. And debris. Charles Epstein, a California geneticist, lost hearing and fingers to a similar bomb that year, his home office a wreckage of splintered wood and bloodstains. In 1994, advertising executive Thomas Mosser opened a package in his New Jersey kitchen, the explosion tearing through his torso, killing him as his family screamed nearby. Kaczynski's final victim, timber lobbyist Gilbert Murray, died in 1995 in Sacramento, his body blown apart by a bomb meant to protest environmental destruction. Each device, marked with FC for Freedom Club, was a meticulous puzzle of wood and metal built in Kaczynski's shack, his hands steady as he etched his hatred into every component. The scenes, Scruton's shattered body, Gelernter's blood-soaked office, Mosser's kitchen-turned-slaughterhouse, linger like ghosts, each a testament to Kaczynski's precision and venom. His evasion was a masterclass in isolation and cunning. His evasion was a masterclass in isolation and cunning. For 17 years, the FBI's Unabomb Task Force, named for university and airline bombings, chased a phantom. Kaczynski left no fingerprints, using salvaged materials, his bombs crafted with tools he made himself. He mailed packages from distant cities, hitchhiking, or taking buses to obscure his trail. In Montana, he lived off rabbits and library books, his cabin without electricity or water, his life invisible. Neighbors saw a disheveled hermit, not a killer, though some suspected him of poisoning dogs, later confirmed by his journal. The FBI's profile pointed to Chicago, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco, but Kaczynski's nomadic past and reclusive present kept him hidden. In 1987, a witness in Salt Lake City saw a hooded figure in aviator sunglasses, leading to a famous sketch, but it wasn't enough. Kaczynski taunted authorities, sending letters to newspapers decrying technology's grip. His 35,000-word manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future, mailed in 1995, demanded publication or more bombs. The Washington Post and New York Times printed it, a chilling critique of technology's erosion of freedom, its ideas oddly lucid despite his madness. The FBI, with 150 agents and thousands of tips, couldn't pin him down, their files a maze of dead ends. Kaczynski's solitude was his fortress, his cabin a vault of secrets, bomb parts, and 40,000 journal pages detailing his crimes. The break came from betrayal, not pursuit. David Kaczynski, Ted's younger brother, read the manifesto in September 1995, its phrases echoing Ted's letters from the 1970s railing against technology. His wife, Linda Patrick, urged him to act, and David, torn by loyalty, hired private investigator Susan Swanson to dig discreetly. Attorney Tony Bisigli relayed their findings to the FBI, fearing a violent raid like Waco. Linguistic analysis linked Ted's letters to the manifesto, and on April 3, 1996, FBI agents lured Kaczynski from his cabin with a ruse about a forest ranger. They found him gaunt, bearded, surrounded by bomb components and a live bomb ready to mail. His journals, meticulous and damning, described each attack, his hatred spilling onto every page. At trial in 1998, Kaczynski rejected an insanity plea, insisting his acts were political. He pleaded guilty to 13 federal charges, including 3 murders, securing life without parole to avoid the death penalty. The courtroom was a gallery of pain. Gelernter, scarred and maimed, spoke of lost potential. Mosser's widow wept for her husband's stolen life. Kaczynski's cold stare offered no remorse, only defiance. His fate is a cell in Adex, Florence, Colorado, a supermax prison where he spent 23 hours a day in isolation until his suicide on June 10, 2023, at 81. His cabin, seized and displayed at Washington's museum, is a relic of his twisted crusade. Survivors like Gary Wright, injured in 1987, carry scars and shrapnel, their lives forever altered. David Kaczynski, haunted by his role, donated the $1 million reward to victims, becoming an anti-death penalty activist. The manifesto, still read by extremists, sparked debates. Some called its ideas prescient, others deranged. Kaczynski wrote to over 400 pen pals, his words a lifeline to the case costing millions exposed the FBI's limits, a lone genius outwitting a nation's best. Unanswered questions linger. Did Murray's experiments break him, or was his hatred innate? The pain he left, 23 wounded, 3 dead, families shattered, casts a long shadow, a reminder that brilliance can twist into terror. As Kaczynski's cabin fades into Montana's dusk, another darkness creeps, another mind waiting to unleash its chaos on the world. Born January 28, 1890, in Seattle, Washington, Stroud was a child of violence, his father's drunken fists bruising his mother, Elizabeth, and shaping a boy who'd flee home at 13. By 18, in Juneau, Alaska, he was a pimp, living with a dance hall girl named Kitty O'Brien. In January 1909, at 19, his life unraveled when he shot bartender F. Charles Damer dead for attacking Kitty, taking the man's wallet to ensure she was paid. Pleading guilty to manslaughter, Stroud expected 3 years, but got 12 at McNeil Island Penitentiary, Alaska's federal territory, demanding a harsh example. His temper flared there, stabbing an inmate, assaulting a hospital orderly, earning him a transfer to Leavenworth in 1912. In 1916, denied a visit from his brother, he stabbed guard Andrew Turner to death in the mess hall, blood pooling on the floor as 1,100 inmates watched. Convicted of first-degree murder, he faced the gallows, but his mother's plea to President Woodrow Wilson in 1920 commuted his sentence to life in solitary confinement. There, in a cell's gray silence, Stroud found sparrows, and the birdman of Alcatraz was born. Stroud's crimes were brutal, but his work with birds became his legend. In 1920, while pacing Leavenworth's yard in solitary, he found a nest with 3 injured sparrows, their tiny bodies battered by a storm. He nursed them, sparking an obsession that transformed his cell into an aviary. Warden William Biddle, eager to showcase a progressive prison, gave Stroud cages, chemicals, and stationery. Using a razor blade and nail, he built cages from wooden crates, amassing 300 canaries. He studied their habits, diseases, and physiology. His cell, a lab of chirps and feathers, smuggled out his 1933 book, Diseases of Canaries, detailed avian ailments with meticulous notes and cures, earning praise from ornithologists. His 1943 Stroud's Digest on the Diseases of Birds, a 500-page tome with his own illustrations, became a cornerstone of avian pathology, notably for a cure for hemorrhagic septicemia, a deadly bird disease. He sold canaries and homemade medicines via mail order, supporting his mother until her death in 1938. His work challenged Darwin's claim that birds lacked smell, Stroud noting their functional olfactory organs in microscopic studies. Ornithologists and farmers lauded him, some even petitioning for his release, but his contributions infuriated prison staff, who saw a murderer profiting from captivity. His violence never faded, a shadow over his scholarship. At McNeil Island, Stroud's knife left an inmate bleeding, though alive. At Leavenworth, he attacked an orderly for reporting his narcotic threats, his fists a blur of rage. The 1916 murder of Turner was cold. Stroud drove a blade into the guard's heart, blood spurting as the mess hall froze, his face calm, almost gleeful. A psychiatrist later noted. Stroud's journals, uncovered years later, revealed a sadistic thrill in recounting these acts, his words laced with pride. In 1931, he secretly married Della Mae Jones, a canary breeder, exploiting a Kansas law to avoid transfer, enraging officials and his mother, who cut ties, calling women trouble. Guards found him distilling alcohol with lab equipment meant for bird cures, a betrayal of trust. On December 16, 1942, with 10 minutes' notice, he was shipped to Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, inmate No. 594, stripped of his birds, his aviary sent to his brother. Why? At Alcatraz, where no pets were allowed, he spent 6 years in D-block segregation, then 11 in the hospital wing, his health crumbling from pneumonia and Bright's disease, his prostate causing daily agony. Stroud's mind never stopped. Even in Alcatraz's concrete tomb, barred from birds, he turned to writing, producing 2 manuscripts, Bobby, an autobiography detailing his violent youth and Oedipal complex, and Looking Outward, a history of the U.S. prison system from colonial times to the formation of the Bureau of Prisons. Both were banned by prison officials who feared his critique of corrupt guards and brutal conditions. Looking Outward exposed prison graft and Stroud's own homosexuality, a revelation that shocked later readers. Smuggled excerpts reached his lawyer, Dudley Martin, but publishers shied away, citing legal risk. Stroud's fame grew with Thomas Gaddis's 1955 book Birdman of Alcatraz, painting him as a misunderstood genius. Though guards and inmates called him manipulative, his charm a mask for danger. The 1962 film, starring Burt Lancaster, cemented his myth, earning a BAFTA, but glossing over his violence. Stroud never saw it, banned from screenings. In 1959, failing health led to his transfer to the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, where he died of natural causes on November 21, 1963, at 73, found by fellow inmate Morton Sobel. Stroud's legacy is a paradox, his ornithological work overshadowing his bloodshed. His books, especially Stroud's Digest, remain cited in avian studies, his cure for hemorrhagic septicemia a milestone. Ornithologists like Fred Daw, a Chicago Bird Club president, corresponded with him, marveling at his insights despite his lack of formal training. His canary business, once patronized by J. Edgar Hoover for a gift to his mother, showed his reach. Yet his crimes, Damer's blood-soaked body in Juneau, Turner's lifeless form in Leavenworth's mess hall, reveal a man who relished violence, his journals confessing an attempt to kill his father at 14. Looking Outward Published as an ebook in 2014 after Martin's 21-year fight, offered a raw look at prison corruption, but its impact paled against his bird studies. Stroud spent 54 years behind bars, 42 in solitary, his mind a battleground of genius and savagery. In 1946, during Alcatraz's infamous battle, he shielded inmates, a rare act of humanity. His death closed a saga that fascinated America, his story a mirror of redemption and ruin. As Stroud's canaries fall silent in Leavenworth's cells, another shadow stirs, another tale of brilliance and blood waiting to unfold.